Hey now Brawlers, it's your old pal Nick here, and today we're going to take a look at Dodge Dice from GameRight Games. Now GameRight makes very family-friendly games. They're simple to learn and fast to play, and Dodge Dice is no exception. This is a sort of push-your-luck dice-chucking game that's all about not taking points. Points are bad, and you want to try and make sure that your opponents take points whenever and wherever possible. There's not much more else I could say about it right now. Let's go ahead and do a very quick overview of the game. Then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Dodge Dice is a very simple push-your-luck party game for 2 to 6 players. The goal of the game is to have the least amount of points at the end of the game. The game ends when one player reaches 100 points, and then you're going to find out whoever has the least. If there's a tie for the least amount of points, then those players who are tied keep playing until there is no longer a tie, and one player is clearly the winner. Now the game comes with these little purple chips, which are called skip chips, and I'll get back to those in a second. And then you have 10 different dice. 2 of the dice are unique. The others, all the rest of the dice are Dodge Dice that just have different colored sides to them. These different colored sides match up with the colored sides of the penalty die. The penalty die has 3 blue sides that have a 10 on them, meaning that you're going to take 10 points if you're stuck with that. And remember, points are bad. It has 2 green sides, which have a 20 on them, and it has 1 red side, which has a 40. And that's the exact same color dispensation on all of the 8 Dodge die. Now the action die is its own unique thing, and we'll get back to that in a second. So when it's, you'll decide who's going to go first. The rules say whoever last played dodgeball, but just do whatever you want. When it's your turn, you're going to roll all 10 die, and then you're going to look at what the dice came up as. Now, for the first roll, what you're immediately going to do is take the penalty die and whatever it came up as. So here we have a 20, which is the green color. And then you're going to take all of the dice that match up with that, all the Dodge Dice that match up with that penalty die, and set them aside with the penalty die. And those are not going to get re-rolled. Then you're going to take a look at the action die. Now, if it had come up as the stop sign here, then really none of that would have mattered, because right then and there, the round ends, or that roll ends, and whichever player rolled that is immediately going to take however many points are on the penalty die. So if that was the case, I would get 20 points immediately. If it was the skip chip symbol here, then you would immediately take a skip chip from the center of the table if there are any available. The rest of the faces of the die only come into play if the round, so to speak, ends in another manner. And that manner is from all of the dice, the Dodge Dice, getting matched up to whatever the penalty die is. Because once one player is done rolling, all the die that are not the penalty die or the color-matched Dodge Dice get passed to the next player. That player is going to roll the die, and again, you're going to take as many die as come up with the green symbol, whatever matches up with the penalty die, and set them aside. And as long as you didn't roll a stop sign, you'll ignore that and pass the dice to the next player in line. Eventually, either a player is going to roll the stop sign and have to take those points and end the round, or all the dice are going to match up with whatever the penalty die is, and then that player is going to have to take points, but that might be modified by the die. Now again, if it was a stop sign, it would have immediately ended anyways, and if it was a skip chip, you would take the skip chip, which you would still do even if you end up matching all the colors and have to take the points. But if it's a minus sign, you get to actually subtract points from your score. Whatever the penalty die is gets subtracted from your total score, which could put you into the negative points. If it is one of either the ×2 or the ×3, well, guess what? You get ×2 or ×3 the amount of points in the penalty die. And if this was the red 40, then that would actually immediately end the game. The other symbol here is the arrow. What the arrow signifies is that whatever amount of points you were just about to take, you pass those to another player of your choice. And there's nothing they can really do about it. Now let's say that you really did not want this to happen. This all really sucked. Well, this is where the skip chips come into play. There's 2 different things you can do with these chips. One is that if you're about to roll the dice, before you roll the dice, you can choose to spend 1 skip chip, throw it back in the center of the table, and completely pass rolling the dice. All the dice that the previous player passed to you, you're going to go ahead and just pass to the next player. But of course, the dice that were already out here, the penalty die stays there. You just pass the dice you're about to roll to the next player. If you don't want to do that and you have the chips available, you can instead choose to roll the dice, and if you have at least 2 skip chips available, you can spend those 2 to ignore whatever the roll result was. Even if it was a stop sign, you just say, oh, I'm spending 2 chips, ignore that, pass them to the next player. The penalty die and the match dice stay out there. The next player has to roll and deal with it. Of course, that also counts if you roll a skip chip. You don't get to get your skip chip if you ignore the entire result. And that's really the game. You're going to keep passing dice around, hoping that you don't get the stop sign, or that you don't match all the colored dodge dice with the penalty die, or that if you do, then you have the skip chips available to avoid that. You'll keep playing until one player hits 100 points. If there's a tie, those players go into sudden death, keep rolling until someone gets points, and whoever has the least amount of points is the winner. That's dodge dice. Okay, I want to talk about the good parts of dodge dice first. And the main good thing, possibly the only really good thing, is the box. I really love this magnetic little clicky thing here. I love the die cut imagery here. It looks really, really cool, and I wish that all of my small filler games had boxes like this. I mean, that's really, really cool. Very well done on that end, Game Right. And that's the only positive thing I'm going to say here. This game is just dumb. It just is. I know that it's supposed to be a family-friendly, kid-friendly game, but come on. I mean, Game Right also produces Forbidden Island, and that is a family-friendly, kid-friendly game that actually has some depth and decision-making to it. There's no decision-making here in Dodge Dice. Okay, I'll take it back. There's one decision here, and that's how you spend your skip chips. And that decision is very, very simple. If you want to try and conserve them as much as possible, which you do, then chances are if you have at least 2 of them, you're just going to roll, and then if you have to, you'll spend 2 of them to ignore it and pass the dice along. And if you're only stuck with 1, then you spend it every time to make sure that there's no chance that you're going to have to roll the dice. I mean, that's it. That is the only bit of decision making here. Other than that, you are at the absolute mercy of the dice. There's no way that you can roll better, or there's no way for people to roll poorly. You just roll the dice and hope that you're not the one that gets screwed by taking the points. Now, having said that, I'm not going to say that we didn't have some fun playing this game, because there is something very visceral and very exciting about watching the dice go around, and then it gets to you and there's only like 3 or 4 dice left, and you're like, I don't have any chips left, and you just have to roll, and then it's not, and then you don't get anything bad, and they go to the next person, and you're just watching the dice go around from person to person, hoping that someone screws up, doesn't have any chips left, has to take the points. There is some fun to be had there, and that's a nice segue into my next point, which is that if you're going to play this game, and there are much better games to play, so I'm not recommending that you do, but if you do, play it with the maximum amount of players. I think this could go down to 2 players. Don't. I mean, starting off with 2 players would be awful. Now, it can get fun when most players have been eliminated and there's a tie for whoever is going to be the winner, and then it gets down to 2 players. That happened in both the games that we played, and it's like, okay, that's a little bit fun watching them go back and forth, not being able to eliminate each other, but it also gets very tedious, and it feels like very artificial fun. It feels like we were having fun that was incidental to the game that was on the table. I mean, and it's sad because like I said, I like the box. I wasn't joking about that. I like the components. I like the cool looking dice. The idea of it is kind of neat, but at the end, chances are, if you look at those chips and you're kind of a gamerly gamer that's been around for a while, you immediately got some glimmer of recognition of something else. You're like, where have I seen chips like that before? And it's No Thanks. And No Thanks is so much better than this game. The idea is the same, that little bit of push your luck, but it's implemented so much better in No Thanks somehow. And because that game exists, there's really no reason to play this. In fact, I'll take it back and say that this isn't really a push your luck game, because in a push your luck game, you have to make a decision to decide to, like, whatever it might be, go further and risk something and bet something. But like I said, the only decision in this game is, do I spend 1 chip now to just pass the dice, or 2 chips to ignore after I roll? I'll spend 2 chips to ignore after I roll because I have 2 chips. So there's not a lot of meat here. There just isn't. It's not the worst game in the world. I wasn't like angry at it after we played it, but I just felt like I've experienced all that this game has to offer. I don't have a lot of reason to keep it when I have games like No Thanks. So this is definitely one that you should dodge. Huh? I'm sorry. My name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.